Hello, friends. Today I'm excited to welcome all of you at this very interesting expert roundtable on Reset for Growth, Gaining Business Momentum for Success. This topic in itself is quite interesting and very relevant in the current circumstances, with elements of uncertainty leading to the need for smart financial management, which goes beyond technical decision making. Today, we have with us few highly eminent industry leaders to deliberate on the strategy to reduce cost and gain visibility over spending to fuel stronger and faster business growth. Please allow me to welcome Neeraj Lal, COO Apollo Hospitals. With over 20 years of experience in healthcare management, Neeraj is a specialist in healthcare operations excellence, P&L, business development, and strategy and quality. Saurav Das, CDIO, SL Mining and Industries, Aditya Birla Group. Saurav has technology experience of over 25 years and is currently heading digital and information technology at SL Mining, Aditya Birla Group. Dr. Suresh Chan, Head Digital Transformation, BITS, Mahindra Finance. With over 31 years of experience, Dr. Suresh is an author and researcher. Besides being a renowned technology expert, he has a number of roles and areas of expertise, including urban planning, customer service evangelist, data scientist, startups, international business, marketing, and logical theory. Vikash Sureka, Global CFO, Star Trek. He's a financial leader with hands-on experience in management, PE investor relations, strategic and financial planning, M&A, fundraising, corporate governance, legal, corporate finance, tax, audit, cost control, etc. Vijayan Patnaik, Head Procurement, External Processing Contracts, Tata Steel. Vijayan is a management professional with more than 15 years of experience in procurement and category management, marketing and sales, supply chain, human resource, logistics, with exposure of multi-modal transportation, sourcing, contracting and fulfillment, warehousing, analytics, business and production planning, and administration. Mankiran Chauhan, Managing Director, Indian SAP, Concur. Mankiran is a technology business leader with 19 plus years of experience in driving a high-performance growth culture. She is responsible for accelerating the growth of SAP Concur's business in the region. This eminent panel will be moderated by the leading and renowned technology analyst, Jaspreet Singh, partner and national leader, clients and markets. Grant Thornton, Bharat. Jaspreet has over 18 years of consulting experience and is action-oriented leader focused on cyber, technology risk, enterprise risk, and emerging technologies. His role includes planning and executing GTM strategies, defining and executing account plans, business planning, and running dedicated campaigns. With this, I would like to pass on the lead to Jaspreet and request him to take this panel ahead. Over to you, Jaspreet.
Thank you, Kalpana. Good afternoon, everyone, fellow panelists. I think it's going to be a tough challenge today, moderating this esteemed panel with so many diverse people from diverse industries. Everybody's also in a different city. We have people sitting in Ahmedabad to Kolkata to Jamshedpur. I think the audience is in for a huge treat. And wow, let's directly go to the topic that we're talking about. We're talking about reset for growth, gaining business momentum for success. And what better times to be talking about the entire reset piece is what we've gone through in the last 18 months. I'm a huge fan of a United Nations report. It's called the World Risk Report. And the 2019 report, actually, I've kept it for my archives. The report says that a pandemic, the probability of a pandemic affecting more than 10 countries at one single point of time is about 5 odd percent. And right now we are sitting in a situation where the pandemic's been going on for about 18 odd months. We don't know when it will get over. And is it more than 10 countries? The answer is for everybody to know what's happening to all the 180 plus countries that we're talking about. So what's the shift that we are looking for, right? In current financial and business landscape, I think momentum is absolutely vital. Momentum fuels the growth of businesses, enables the organization to digitally transform their services and product, which in turn gives fuels and impetus to develop more services, create more products, Hence, it's like oiling the entire business transformation workforce. There were times when you used to go into board meetings about 4 years ago, and they said, should we go to the cloud? Should we not go to the cloud? Uh, or should we be worried about cybersecurity? Or you can speak in the board meeting in the last 10 minutes, right? I think we have evolved. The first question that we get now asked is, what will it take for me to go to the cloud? And cybersecurity is probably one of the first topics that get discussed, along with business transformation. And I'm sure in the course of next 1 hour we'll hear about things like AI, ML, so on and so forth, on how some of these pieces are changing the industry, right? And to keep this growth going, the audience will need to be identified. Market research is taking on an all new dimension. Appropriate channels we need to be utilized, and I think I read it in B school, about the SMART goals, right? They need to be defined for the entire momentum. But this transformation cannot happen on its own, right? A transformation does not begin and end in a vacuum or is completed by just one person. It requires the goal of these transformations to be aligned with strategy goals of this organization, and hence that's why you see so many people from different areas of a business coming on this entire panel. We've got people from procurement, we've got people from finance, we've got people from IT strategy, so on and so forth. So what it really means is that the entire organization should run like a well-oiled engine. And by adopting new age technologies like AI, like ML, and data mining can bring new insights about various aspects of existing businesses. Once we've done that, only then the transformation will be completed and the organization's momentum will keep on moving. Because any organization today that's not innovating, not looking at its business strategy, or not preparing for what will come tomorrow is already a laggard and not a leader in the industry. With this, I would like to, once again welcome all my eminent panelists, and let's start with you, Mankiran. When you got an invite, having such a vast technology experience, what were your initial thoughts, please?
Thanks for the question, Jaspreet. And I think you're right in terms of the momentum. And if you look across digital and financial transformation, digital transformation that we are now discussing, there is certainly those are the key enablers going forward in that changing business environment. And if you think about digital transformation has become, all the conversation you said about cloud and transformation, that ability to support and unlock that growth opportunity or the new business models that we are seeing come across in the industry are all enabled on the back of technology, on the back of digital transformation. Similarly, that financial transformation part is very, needed, because that's where agility and the ability to navigate the future success depends on. So certainly both digital transformation and the financial transformation is about getting that backbone set in terms of momentum growth.
Superb. Thank you. I think you said the unlocking is very very important, right? And then excellent points. We'll definitely come back to you, Mankiran, on understanding more of this financial transformation and the unlocking that you spoke about. Let's go to you, Saurav. Your initial thoughts, please.
In the last 18 months, the whole, because of the pandemic and other things, the business paradigm has taken a lot of change along with our personal lives as well. And in this changed scenario, every penny now counts. So business, because the business paradigm change has also brought in more competition. So with that, and in the quest of getting leveraging better technology, so I think this now has taken a new shape, and my gut feel is that in the days to come, this will this entire thing will refine further. That's my initial take.
Thank you. From unlocking to going to every penny counts, I think let's head to you, Bijen. Your initial thoughts, please.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, everyone. Like when I got the invite, I thought, why me? Because basically I am from a manufacturing industry and you will be talking only about digital. Okay. But later on I thought that no, this is me because automotive and steel, this contributes like 5% of the GDP of the country, if you count the manpower and everything. So how this industry got transformed in during this last 18 months. And we were never imagined like we will be working from home will be operating in 100% capacity, and the steel, that Tata Steel or any steel industry will be making huge profit during this pandemic. So this has happened, everything happened digitally. Like there was very less manual intervention, and how this has the transformation happened, and whether this business momentum will continue further or it will be the new normal. So these are the points which came to my mind after getting the invitation, and I thought I must share with the audience. Thank you.
Excellent points, Bijan, and I can tell you, somebody who's tracked manufacturing sector for almost 10, 15 years, from organizations talking about OT, IT, OT integration, to being very reluctant on taking on new technologies, to at least what I see in the newspapers, and talk to my fellow clients, right? You are probably one of the leaders now, right? When I say your sector is one of the leaders in adopting some of the new age technologies like RPA, AI/ML, and stuff. And then I think as we go on, it would be very fascinating to hear more stories. Coming to you, Vikas. Vikas, your initial thoughts, please.
Yeah, thanks, Jaspreet. And we are 2 years into the pandemic, right? And I'm sure we have spoken so much about it in the last several months over what is happening. Our lives have gotten disrupted. We have learned new way of working. Is it a new normal, etc.? So my view is, currently I would say when the invite came, I was thinking, what is growth, right? I mean, it's nothing like new normal to me. I mean, this is normal. The pandemic is here to stay for much longer. It will become endemic and stuff like that. I'm sure Neeraj will talk more about it. He's from that background. So the question that came to me was, what is growth, right? I mean, given there's so much of penetration of financial products, etc., into the country right now in the last 12, 18 months, the way I define growth is, fundamentally nothing is changing in the business. The fundamentals are exactly the same. Every business that is existing pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, and endemic will all want to grow, right? So what is growth was the real question that came to me. And to me, the way I define growth is, we need to generate alpha versus our peer group. That is what we're all here as managers trying to do for the business. And in the process of generating alpha, what you end up doing is create a lot of volatility in the business, which is nothing but beta, right? More the beta in the business, you'll generate more alpha. And in the context of the business, to me, beta is all about, managing and understanding behavior, understanding and giving freedom to people to experiment, understanding the larger trends that are happening in the market, and then demonstrating agility. If you can do these four things well in the business, right? And of course, I can go into a lot more detail through the panel discussion, what I mean by each of these terms. If you can manage beta well and then overlay that with capital allocation and risk management, I think you're well prepared to, drive the transformation journey that everybody's talking about, adopt digital, and so on and so forth. In our industry, just like Vijay mentioned, I never expected in the BPM, BPO space that we'll be out of brick and mortar. Never imagined, right? Today, all our agents, all our workforce across 15 countries, 45,000 people, 80% of people are working from home and managing very complex conversations and transactions for our clients. It is unimaginable maybe 24 months ago. So we are all going through this entire transition that is happening. But like I said, to generate alpha, create beta, and manage beta.
Excellent points, Vikas, and I would want to definitely hear more on the entire alpha beta thing. And having also worked a lot in the IT/ITES sector with my clients, I remember it was third week of March, and the lockdown had just got announced. For about 1 week, one of my clients was trying to ship desktops to their agent homes, right, so that they could work from home. From there to now, a lot of IT/ITES companies. I'm not sure we will probably speak about this, but also saying that you can work from anywhere as long as
Yes.
the clients. You don't need to have so many offices like all IT/ITES BPM companies used to have, right? Almost 75 to 80% of your workforce can continue working from wherever they would want. And that's a very, very welcome change, which also we are seeing in lots and lots of industries. I've been helping clients in IT/ITES negotiate contracts with clients in US, and one of the first things was we need to come down and we want to see your facility, and your
Yep,
facility should have a
absolutely.
physically separated space with access control. And I've spent tons and tons of time during those negotiations to now, where actually in one of the conferences last week where I was moderating, one of the board members of a huge IT/ITES company said, he said, Jaspreet, what I'm worried about is earlier we had 6 offices in India, right? Even then we got hacked. Today we have 20,000 offices because every employee sitting at home is actually a virtual office, right?
Yes.
How do you ensure that number one, I'm not hacked? Number two, that the culture gets spread, right? You come to office, you meet 10 new people, you understand what's happening. So, we'll talk about some of the softer aspects also from gaining business momentum perspective. But thanks a ton, Vikas, for those valuable inputs. Over to you, Neeraj.
Yeah, I was trying to hear all of you. I was in Bangalore when this first pandemic came, first season of pandemic came, and most of my friend in Bangalore who was working in different IT parks and all, they're saying we are WFSH, working from home. I'm saying to them, I'm also WFH, I'm working from the hospitals. So I think hospital, when I seen the topic reset for growth, I think hospitals are the only industry which has worked 24 by 7 as usual in 365 days. And I'm getting phone calls from all my buddies working in different industries and all for a bed. And we as hospitals, we have made 4 new hospital in this pandemic, and nobody is working from home. Everybody was coming. At the same time, though we have changes the pattern. Say, for example, we have separated our OPD and IPD block. Everybody who's coming into the outpatient rooms to consult a doctor or a specialist, they may not get admitted to a hospital. But when you as a patient come inside the hospital, you got a fear. I cannot go to the hospital because of, ICUs, patients and all. So what we have done, we have taken a special building, 50,000 square feet of building away from the main hospital, which we said a OPD block. And we have kept battery operated car there. So everybody was coming there. Doctor was seeing them. It is like a mall. It is not a hospital. So you see a doctor, you do your health checkups, take a pharmacy and go away. Out of 10 patients, only 3 are getting admitted. You sit on the battery operated car, go inside the IPD block. So few changes we have done, but thanks to this pandemic, the digital transformation has happened in the healthcare in a big way. We have started a home healthcare vertical, which is growing very, very big. At the same time, most of the star doctors are not available on video consultation for whatever reason. Now, we were having less than 5% consultation on video. Now we are having 47% video consultation. Most of the tier 2, tier 3 city don't got a high-end doctors and specialists. So now we are targeting those people in different areas of the city, outside city, through a video consultation. And whenever there is a requirement, they are coming to the hospital to see a specialist. So I've seen a dramatic change, but for us as healthcare worker, we were working from the hospital.
I think again, super excellent points, and I think you couldn't have hit the fact more closer home, Neeraj. Two industries, if you ask me, right? Though even being from a digital background, been doing this for about 18, 20 years now. I thought two industries will never change the way we live, right? One from a digital perspective, one was hospitals, the second was shopping. But in these 18 months, I myself would have consulted at least 6, 7 doctors, different times on teleconsultations or video calls, and it's worked smooth, complete
Yeah.
smooth. I can't wait for us to have faster bandwidth like the 5G pieces coming in so that we can take it to a different level altogether. And everybody here knows on what's happening in the shopping industry, right? It's also again crazy. I'm part of some incubation centers where the kind of apps that they're making, you just have to click a photo of a cloth and it will tell you how it fits to how it fits your frame. So it's mind-boggling what digital can do and the kind of stuff that we are going through. We've heard quite a few interesting stories from 47% of people being treated digitally to every penny counts to unlocking the digital wave to alpha beta, people 80% workforce working, and obviously my favorite auto and steel industry, actually doing tons and tons of digital transformation. Mankiran, don't want to put you on the spot, but probably my first question would be to you. Uh, you know, like me, you also help organizations in their transformation journeys, right? So every meeting, I'm sure I walk into, I hear these two words, even if companies don't know what's happening, right? So and I'm pretty sure you'll also be going through the same. So what are the expectations from digital and financial transformation in actually gaining the entire business growth that we are talking about?
Thank you for the question, Jaspreet. And if you think about just the increase on investments that companies have made, there was a Gartner study which said that 82% of boards are increasing the investment in digital capability and in technology, just to accelerate the growth that we're talking about. So if you go back to the expectation, there are three key steps that we are clearly seeing happen when the transformation conversations are happening. One is that operational excellence, the layer of operational excellence, which is really about achieving those quick wins by automating those operational processes, maximizing that efficiency, which for some organization was just really getting people to work from home, right? That immediate transformation. But beyond that is about that how are organizations looking at more consistent, more sustained practices to improve those operational efficiency, whether it's in the area of spending, which is an area that we currently talk about in terms of policies or visibility into spend, or how do they get employee productivity to become, we're all talking about the great resignation and therefore the employee productivity and the future of work conversations, and how automation can enable that operational excellence becomes really important to ensure that the time that the employees are spending is on value added activities, is on culture, is on good things versus supporting their business performance. I think the second, we're more and more, expectation or a step that we're seeing is about that data and decision making. That we've gone are the days where datas were in silos and datas were, it's now a data-led strategy, which is really focused on getting insights onto how do we manage, whether it's cash or liquidity or scenario planning, or what we are going to do from a future asset perspective. The decisions have become real time. The decisions have become very data led as well. So they're become a very important partner in that overall transformation that organizations are seeing. And finally, I think from a operating model perspective, this is really about the transformation that functions like finance themselves are going through. Previously, I think finance functions were more responsible for enabling or approving transformation for other parts of the organization, whereas now this is really, how do we put the emphasis on the shift where the majority of the core team is focused on building the future of the organization versus just the measuring and monitoring of the past. So certainly if you look forward, I think the new digital world will demand all leaders, all functions, all leaders to drive and deliver that valuable insight, strong data-led approach, strong business performance, and focus on that multifaceted decisions that we will now be faced with in the next decade.
Mankiran, little excited, little scared. Data-led strategy, multifaceted discussion. I think we are in for a rollicking time. And if last 18 months are any glimpse of what we are looking at, I think I'll be naive in saying that anybody can make predictions on how our world will change in the next 5 years or so. But thanks for leading us there. Neeraj, coming to you, since Mankiran ended by talking about finance, and I thought, you could be the best one to answer this. Financial transformation we've spoken about, is more than technology. It's a cultural shift, right? It's integration towards sustainability, towards the growth, and other aspects of the organization. So basically, a question in two parts. What does it mean to you, your business today, the entire financial transformation piece, and second is, how do you deal with the financial challenges around it, right? It involves a lot of investment ahead of the curve, and sometimes it might be taking huge punts. So how do you go about doing that, Neeraj?
Because of this pandemic and increased use of digital technology, it has directly impacted our revenue. So earlier, say for example, we are seeing around 800 patients per day in our outpatient consultation room. Then we are seeing around 1500 or 2000 patients a day. And out of them, 50% are through virtual consultation. Not only the people who require consultation or a procedure, they are coming to the hospital. So because of digital transformation, there is an increase in revenue as well as productivity. I'll give you example of our surgical ICU or the PICUs and all. So any patient who's there inside the ICU, they require a multi-specialty consultant to come and see. It is not a one single specialty. Maybe you require a cardiologist or a nephrologist or something like that. And during this pandemic times, everybody cannot come at a single place. So what we have done, we have used these technologies of AI as well as machine learning. We have connected these machines with the cell phone of a doctors and a critical care consultant who is coming on maybe odd days or even days. He's in touch with all these specialty consultant. Like most of the babies are on ventilators, and most of the patients who are there, they're sick, their heart is sinking, and they have a difficulty in breathing and all. So what we have done, a CTVA surgeon or a GI surgeon, we have connected these machines to their phones, and a live data is flowing into their phone through a technology which is machine learning. I'm sure you are all technocrat, and it makes life more easy. So a patient is seen on a periodic time. Earlier, if you must have seen your hospital bill. Whenever a patient is there in the ward and ICU, 2-time visit is mandatory in the morning and the evening. Now, because of this technology, a doctor concentration is more, and at a given point of time, many doctors are seeing that patient. As a result, a staff nurse and a medical officer who's posted inside the ICU, they empowered. So a treatment happen in a fast way, and we need to process, I'm using this word, process the patient from ICU fast and fast, because we got a shortage of bed across, ventilator are shorts and these things. So it has really, if you see over the revenues and business, it has gone tremendously. And I was just talking earlier, a home healthcare hospital, you see the home healthcare businesses have come and gone, but it has never taken a pace because of this pandemic. Our home healthcare vertical have developed in a big way. For the last 1.5 years, the physiotherapy of parents, the medical checkup of us is not happening. So we have created a home healthcare team of 12 people. They used to go with all what social distancing as all protocol were vaccinated. They go to the homes, collect the samples, do their health checkups and telling the status of a particular patient. They're not supposed to come to the hospital. I'll give you a small example. We used to, whenever we go to the hospital, we used to do punch in and punch out. We have installed the AI-based cameras in the OPD and the IPD. So whenever the patients are coming to our IPD rooms or our outpatient rooms, so whenever, and we are capturing the mood. So whether patient is happy or sad or very much irritated. So a customer care is not going to them. They see on the camera, okay, this patient is sad or irritated. Then she goes to the patient, say, I understand you are not very happy, you are very sad. How can I help you? And he got amused. How do you know? Something like this. I got a billing problem, my doctor has not come, I'm waiting for the last half an hour. And in the morning, I'm going to the hospital, my happiness index is 75%. In the evening, I'm coming, my happiness index fall down to 40%. My HR manager will give me a call. What happened, Neeraj? Hey, what happened? Why you're not happy? So hospital, which is not using technology, I wish one day a paperless hospital, those dreams are coming true through this pandemic. A patient is entering to a hospital, he just say his UHID number, and I know he has done 3 visits, 4 visits. No need to go to the prescription and go to the pharmacy. A prescription is already made in the software, and you can take the printout in the pharmacy. You will straight away go to the pharmacy, your pharmacy bag is ready for you. So I think hospitals, by using this EMR, AI and machine learning and digital, the financial point of view, hospital have tremendously increased the scope. And I always feel like tier 2, tier 3 cities where the super specialists and subspecialists are not there, most of the doctor practice in big mega cities only, we are reaching far-flung areas. So telemedicine has not kicked so many times. Most of the hospital, including Apollo got one of the biggest telemedicine network, but because of this pandemic, I think we have reached far-flung areas, and we are treating patient on a big time basis. So a patient is traveling for 400 kilometers for a consultation is now not coming. We are giving advice there, and just in case they require some procedure and all, they are coming. So entire digital transformation and change our financial books as well.
Neeraj,
Wow.
I know just will say something, but I think from a technology perspective, working in the space of technology, we always think about how technology impacts lives. So it's awesome hearing the stories and how they really come to fruition. It's so amazing. That's amazing. Where usage of technology and AI and ML to actually make lives better.
No, pandemic actually helped us, and pandemic act as an enzyme for us. See, doctors not using and using, so 5% and now 47%. Because of this, we are using various technology. And healthcare, I always feel it is a industry which never used technology to the great extent. So now I have seen because of this pandemic, this technology we are using, and now we are treating more patient, and it is technology at its best in the hospital now.
No, I think Mankiran probably stole my thunder, but I'm speechless, right? This is what impacts life, right? When we talk about our day-to-day lives, if I am able to get the better services at hospital, and sorry, I'm sure everybody of us on this panel would have stories about how they felt cheated, frustrated, angry, all pieces. But to see that, the hospital taking steps from a digitization perspective, including all of these pieces, getting reports emailed, so that you can do further consultations, etc. To the entire piece around capturing the emotions on camera. I think probably great. So let's get to something little lesser serious, but probably more critical. Uh, so Vikas, I'll come to you now as your role of a CFO, right? And we spoke about how financials though have increased, but it's also increased the revenue. The revenue's gone over the top. Uh, I was thinking, a major part of CFO's life, right? Sorry, I'm not a CA. Taking a shot at it. I'm always been a technocrat. Uh, would be in doing spend
It's a good thing
analysis,
you're not a CA. Let me tell you that.
doing. Sorry,
I said it's a
is
good
that?
thing you're not a CA.
Thank you so much. But you know how it works in professional services firm, right? Almost 95% of everybody I meet in my organization is like, "Oh, you're not a CA." I said, no, I got lucky, maybe. So,
Yeah, certainly.
so CFO spends so much time on my spend analytics, my spending visibility, and real time budget insights, right? Uh, so as a CFO, from a technology perspective, how do you think some of these pieces can be improved by leveraging technology or digital transformation?
Yeah. No, again, thanks for the question. Right. See, I mean, couple of years ago, there's always a major discussion. How do you make funds available for technology, right? And if you read any report over the last 2 decades, right? You read Harvard, you read McKinsey, BCG, anybody, they will tell you that roughly, if you take an enterprise of any size scale across the world, about 2 to 3% of the revenue goes on technology spend. That was the total budget available to any technology, right? And that shows up on their P&L, and it's easy to understand how much spend is there. And then every time there's a business case that people say, okay, can you increase more? Then people say, okay, here is my P&L. If I invest 1% more, I'll lose margins. That was a discussion, right? And the same P&L, if you go and look at what is the spend on corporate travel and entertainment, it will roughly translate to 4% across various industries, right? Now as CFOs, life is very simple. You just have to transform one line item to another line item and say, here is the budget available, right? And therefore go and get into a digital transformation in terms of, what you need to achieve. And the thing that doesn't show up in the P&L is, do you have a single version of truth in the organization, right? If you're operating in a multi-geography, multi-city type of a business, everybody has a version of the story in terms of what their business is doing, right? More and more from a finance team standpoint or a CFO standpoint, the whole conversation about measuring, reporting, compliance, etc., is a core function that you anyway would do. But the expectation that is happening across all finance functions across industries is, can you help me come up with a single version of truth about my business across various verticals, across various geographies that I'm operating in. Can you provide insights in terms of what is happening in my business, right? And in an environment where all of us are working and in silos, sitting across our homes and trying to bring this story together is becoming very challenging, right? Earlier, we used to have conversations in meeting rooms, meet several people, gather information, make sense out of it, and then talk to our boards, investors, and business teams, right? All of that is not going to happen now, and it's not going to happen in the near future because this is a new way of doing things, right? At least I've seen over the last 12 months, the moment we started implementing several tools and technologies in our various businesses, we're able to collect a lot of data, right, that comes out of these tools. Right now, the question is we have too much data as well. That also is a bit of a problem. How do you then, mine this data out of the data lakes that you have and create meaningful insights, which actually helps us make decisions, right? And today, if you see any board, your CTO and your CFO will talk pretty much a similar language about technology, digital transformation, what investments need to be made. And one is not a finance expert, another is not a technical expert, but the language is very similar in terms of direction in which the organization has to go, right? And earlier you talked about, data security, etc., right? I mean, we as a company, I can share an incident because it's a public incident. We had never thought that we'll be hacked and there'll be a ransomware on the company, right? So 4 months ago we were hacked and we had a ransomware attack on the company, right? It brought the entire business across various geographies to a standstill because and this risk probably we had underestimated in terms of what can happen, considering various people sitting across the board. Now the question is how do you very quickly get out of that attack itself, but in the process create significant or make significant investment so that you can give confidence to your stakeholders, both internal and your customers, that actually we can run this business despite all the challenges that come with it in terms of data security, data privacy, confidentiality, etc., right? So the entire conversation is kind of pivoting towards how do you use technology in the most efficient manner to run your businesses. And naturally the conversation then pivots in terms of where do you how do you make the investments available. So my answer to that always is there are 2 line items. The second line item will vanish. Maybe it will be there as a 10% of what you used to spend earlier. There's no need to travel anywhere. You can do 100 meetings a month sitting in your living room, right? And redeploy that money to take your business to a different level in terms of where the world is going. Today it's all about doorstep commerce. Everybody wants to sell everything at your doorstep, right? So how do you get to doorstep commerce, right? And how do you as a business enable that process and gain from it? That's really the conversation, and that's how we are thinking as a finance team in our business.
Wow, excellent. From having tons and tons of data to having risks around cybersecurity to, I think we should probably go back to what Mankiran said in her opening piece around the entire data-led strategy. Maybe there are some synergies we can explore there. To doorstep commerce, I am in love with this term now. I'll use it everywhere where I go and
yes.
moderate. See,
Commerce.
that's an advantage, right?
They will want to sell you atta, they want to sell you clothes, they want to sell you food. Just buy from me. That's it. Sit in your living room, we'll give you everything.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, A to Z of commerce, right? The complete aspect. So we've seen technology, we've seen financials, we've seen. But let's talk about procurement, right? Probably again one of those departments. Digital, maybe not. Contracts, really not sure. So from a procurement perspective, Bijen, if I were to ask you, right, how does what would be your 3 to 4 key priorities, right, and along with it expectations that will help you achieve some of those priorities?
Yeah, like I was thinking that like this will be addressing the afternoon audience, and I must tell one very funny incident of my life while linking to this topic only. Like after working for 15 years and becoming 40 years, you become an anecdote. Okay, so I can proudly share my experience. When I joined Tata Steel procurement, that time like procurement used to work in files only. Like it is, I thought where I'll end up after my MBA. Is it a government office or is it a corporate office? too much of files. Like I was offered a chair which was surrounded by files only. So I never dreamed of any transformation or changes in my life in this company or in this era where everything will be digitized. Like my friend Vikas, he said that like about CS, like in procurement professionals have two, like we cannot say they um, don't get along with the CS as well as the audit because they question a lot. They try to change the conditions. So same thing, like everything. Like I'm spending less time with my finance guys or audit because everything is digitized. I am spending more time on my core activities, which is negotiation, meeting suppliers, and spending doing the spend analysis. And I must give you one analytics, like data, like more than 54% of the business have digitized and automated their procurement processes. It means what benefit they are getting out of it, like they have more spend visibility, they are more accurate spend forecasting, because forecasting means a lot to us, because if the flood happens in Australia, my raw material supply is going to be affected. If there is a tornado in US, then Vale might not supply you, I don't know, you cannot produce steel. So this kind of visibility is there with me right now. And supply chain resilience, like the entire supply chain has more resilient right now, and it is more robust. And I must give you one example. Like although I'm in a steel company, but we are more a mining company than a steel company. Okay, we have lots of captive ore mines, and currently the surveys is being done through drones. And there are, I was talking to one of my counterpart who is a head of mining in one of the area. He was managing the operation from his home. So can you imagine a head of mining managing the operation from home? And if you talk about warehouse, because I'm giving all the examples of procurement. If you talk about warehousing, like, and the entire warehousing is now paperless. Nobody is asking you for a invoice copy, and you have to produce it. Everything is digitized. The driver who has no idea about generally they are not very skilled or literate guys, but they are bringing our material safely using smartphones, and they know how to use this technology because they are trained, because we are training them. So they're trained to produce the invoices, e-copies, e-challans, so at the gate of the company. So this makes, like in COVID time also, without any manual touch, we could manage the entire operation with like 100% efficiency, or even more than 100% efficiency, which is clearly visible in most of the steel companies balance sheet. So this kind of you must say, like I must say, India is going to be a $5 trillion economy in next 2 to 3 years. Okay, and for that you need lots of infrastructure to be built around you, and this cannot be built if you have some paradigm shift in terms of your how you operate your business. And this digital intervention will bring all these changes in the entire supply chain and transform the economy. So with this, I must stop and allow others to speak. Thank you.
No, I think excellent points. I loved your point about you being always surrounded by files and now no files. In fact, I read a news somewhere, I think maybe 2 or 3 days ago, UAE became the first country in our region to go completely paperless. They've
Correct.
actually,
Correct.
they've actually, I think it was in one of the, it was, I think, in Economic Times or Financial Access, one of the newspapers, and just recent 2 3 days ago. Sort of, sorry, last but not the least, you in your role, right? We've spoken about tons and tons of different things. Uh, we've spoken about how do we actually look at business, finance, procurement, transformations, digital. For a very brief moment, we've spoken about cybersecurity, privacy, etc., etc. We've also spoken about spending visibility, real-time insights, etc. Right? Uh, uh, from your end, right? What do you think will be the 2 or 3 key factors for organizations in the next 1 or 2 years? If uh, see, it's like a momentum, right? And what's happened in momentum, either you get on with it and you're carried away somewhere, or you are at the banks and while the entire world shifts. in front of your eyes, right? So if you were to give people listening on this conference 2 or 3 advices that they can also jump into the momentum bandwagon, what would it be?
Right. First of all, I think we had a very interesting discussion so far, and I was listening to every piece of it, and I was relating to it. I mean, especially what Vijayan was saying about people sitting somewhere else and doing the mining. I mean, that's a norm, and drones doing much many more things. And I really like the term that was used, doorstep commerce. Fantastic. So coming to your question, joining the bandwagon or not joining the bandwagon, I think the first top of the mind response is, do we have a choice, right? I think today companies don't have a choice, because if you don't do it, your competition is going to do it, and they are going to be miles ahead. Number two, the whole, as I said in the opening remarks, the whole business paradigm is changing. The way we used to, let's say, buy a book 10 years ago and the way we buy a book today has changed. The way we used to call a taxi 10 years before and today has changed, and those are simple things. I mean, Vijay talked about passes. I mean, today if you see, there are no invoices, right? They're all e-invoices. There are no way, delivery challans. They're all e-way-bills. I mean, just taking some examples. So the whole world is changing. The whole business paradigm is changing. So there are no choice. Having said that, it's also not a one-way game. I mean, when we are doing something, we have to understand that we are doing it for the business. We are not doing a transformation for the sake of transformation. We are doing a transformation for the sake of business. So first question we have to ask is, what is in it there for the business? Will it really make sense? So if we now segregate it as we do in a IT and digital journey, so stage one is the ideation, stage two is the implementation, and stage three is the adoption. If you break into that life cycle, so ideation is very, very important, because lots of ideas will come, and out of that we really have to pick and choose the right ones which will really impact the business. Because finally, what is digital? Digital is not about wow IT. Digital is about how through IT, through technology, leveraging that, we can positively impact the levers of business. And the levers of business stays the same. 100 years ago, it was revenue, cost, efficiency. Today also, it is the same. And 100 years hence also, it will remain the same, right? So how we can positively impact that, how we can look at business differently, because now with the changing paradigms, with the increase in the competition and things like that, how we can look at it, and how we can leverage, as I said, technology to better do things for the business. Finally, when we are looking at the transformation journey itself is not difficult. So if we try 10 things, we might fail in 8 or 9 of it. However, that one thing which will not fail, which will be the claim to fame. So therefore, we need to adopt a fail fast approach. Okay, we have got 10 ideas. 10 looks very good. I mean, there are investments in lakhs, and it will be a game changer. It will give us returns in crores and hundreds of crores. Fantastic. Let's try it out. Let's try it out. So we try 10 ideas, and then out of that, 1 or 2 really click, and it gives us the return. It really takes us a league ahead. That's what we should do. So, that's in a nutshell, if I try to answer your question.
Wow, I think excellent inputs from a revenue cost efficiency. And it was there 100 years ago, it's there now, it will be there 100 years from now also. So, Saurabh, given that you were the last one, now I want to start with you and probably go in again a random manner. Saurabh, in the digital role, right? Everybody else is speaking about finance, procurement, operations, right? Uh, do you think that also digital, investing in digital helps build better control and better transparency within the organization?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, as I said, what is digital? I mean, digital is we are looking at the business more from a technology perspective. Let's look at it from a business perspective. Now, in order to manage business, what do business leaders want? I mean, here we have people who are leaders of business, who are from finance, who are from procurement. They need information. I mean, if the information is there, they know what to do. In management parlance, we say that whatever can be measured can be managed, right? So if there is a way in better measuring things, therefore there will be a way in better managing it, and from there the efficiency starts. From there the positive impact to top line and bottom line will start. Therefore, through digital, if we can understand the business, if we can understand how the business is running, the nitty-gritties of it, and then apply the digital transformations, be it point solutions or be it overall transformations, whatever it is. I mean, I got a very interesting insight. I mean, somebody mentioned that IT and digital gets 2 or 3% of the revenue as a budget, whereas traveling gets 4% of the revenue. I mean, that's a very important insight. But let's say that we are very cost conscious. I mean, if you look at travel and things like that, I mean, in one way, it impacts three very important things. Number one, it is all about seamlessness. Organizations want to be paperless, they want to be seamless and things like that. Number two, it's all about employee productivity as well, and it's also about the cost efficiency. So it's hitting three places. Now, how do you manage it? In order to manage it, first I need to know where exactly what costs are going, which department, which person, which travel, what. I mean, we can have a business case. Let's say in one location many people are traveling and they are spending a lot on hotels, so it doesn't make sense to put up a guest house there. So just one example. So the moment we have all the data in a nice form and readily available to us, then we can take those decisions, and that's how business gets positively impacted. So that's the fun part of digital transformation.
Wow. Adding the entire fun piece and the transparency piece to digital transformation, definitely. Neeraj, I'm still thinking about what all points you made, and I think this is probably one of the best conferences that I would have moderated. If I were to start writing, I could probably write a book on what's being discussed here. Neeraj, we spoke about so many benefits that the company is doing to its patients, right? From a digitization perspective, uh, would you also tend to agree, given your role of a COO, right, that some of these initiatives would also in turn lead to the larger employee benefits? Your thoughts on that? Because I think Mankiran mentioned about the employees and the internal culture of an organization. So I thought before we go to Mankiran, we could probably lead into this. Your thoughts, Neeraj?
Yeah, see, employee benefits is also increased. I'll give you one small example. I think it will help me to explain that. See, hospital generating large number of sources which generate data, our HIMS, our HRM software for vaccination data, OP and IP, and so many software there. We got a lab with one software. So the challenge is that every department is generating own data. So much of data generated, but which no data is talking to each other. So what IT department in most of the hospital, what they are doing, everybody is consuming data, but they're not talking to each other. So in the morning also, like, whenever we talk to a nurse or a medical officer or a doctor, say, for example, therefore the main problem with this pandemic is happening, data is generated. But if I ask you genuinely, Covishield versus vaccine versus Sputnik, I'm just giving data because the vaccines everybody is taking. Secondly, males versus females, the 60-year and 30 years plus and all those things. So these are the few questions which healthcare cannot able to decipher as of now. Data is generated, so many software, and one of the best software, like finance people have their own data, operation team got their own data, HR got own data. So this is not integrated. But now about the employee benefit, I tell you, like our staff, we have dedicated few of the, because of this, most of the staff has not come back after this COVID. These young girls and boys who are working as a staff nurse, because parents get fear and they've taken their people there. Number one. Secondly, the food part of it, hospital have their own kitchen. So what we have done for employee benefit, we have started annual health checkup for our employees, which were earlier not a part of this thing, number one. Secondly, we have created one wing where our critical staff is staying there, so that they're not supposed to waste their time while going out and coming back. And we have defined a shift-based management. Say, for example, we have divided, generally medical college work in that format. So we have divided unit A, unit B, and unit C. So just in case a pandemic 3 arrived, or 4, I don't know. So if one set of doctors or paramedic get potential this virus, so we have team B in place, because in first pandemic and second pandemic we have a tough time. We have created our oxygen banks and all. So these all things we have done, and staff at the last, they are benefit by that, because they got their arms to protect themselves while taking care of the patients.
Excellent. Speechless. I think I probably couldn't ask you a question again, Neeraj. Vijay and Vikas, coming to both of you, 30 seconds closing remarks. Digital transformation, uh, 3-year story or 10-year wonder?
Yeah, I like to go first because I was thinking, like when I joined the company like Tata Steel, again, the merger was happening between Chorus and Tata Steel. It was one of the largest acquisition of an Indian company. At that time, it was $12 billion. And the merger itself took some 2 to 3 years, even after 10 years, it was not successful. But you consider that the merger between Bhushan Steel, which was approximately of $5 billion and one of the largest acquisition in the domestic market, which very recently happened. And after the government declared that the merger can happen immediately within 2 to 3 months, it happened smoothly and seamlessly. Imagine the procurement transactions. I must talk about SAP HANA and SAP like Ariba, all these things. So these things were being implemented so fast because of this kind of digital intervention and the capability. So I must say this has improved. We have come a long way. These are the two examples.
This must be music to Mankiran's ears. But we'll come to you, Mankiran. Vikas, your closing remarks.
Yeah. So to your question, Jasprit, I would say it's neither a 2-year wonder nor a 10-year journey. I think it's here to stay, right? It's going. I mean, we are just at the tip of the iceberg as we speak. But see, while we can speak a lot on digital transformation and the benefits, etc. I mean, that was very evident in this conversation, and that's true across the world as well. But we also have to recognize that it comes with a bunch of pitfalls as well, right? Like you touched upon a topic on employee benefits, right? If you really talk about employee engagement or people engagement in general, digital actually is counterproductive in that area. So the question for all of us as we go forward will be, yes, we certainly have embarked on this journey. We are going to see significant progress over the next 10, 20, 30 years, right? But how do we continue to balance in a manner that the human touch remains? We continue to be socially engaged across our stakeholders and also get the benefits of digital technologies I would say the real challenge that we all face, right? It's just not a one-way street. I mean, you have to take this in parallel and see how it all plays so that you continue to, eventually what's the purpose is to, like I think Saurabh mentioned, you have to grow your business, make it profitable, generate cash flows and make your investors happy, right? But you have to do that along with, being better engaged with your stakeholders as well.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's a double-edged sword, right? We'll yes. Probably need another panel to discuss. We also have Dr. Suresh, who just joined us. Hi, Dr. Suresh, welcome. We've been discussing about digital transformation. So I'll quickly, in 2-3 minutes, if you want to talk about your experience from a digital transformation, that would be great.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for this opportunity. Coming back to your question, if you see from the financial industry, after a long, more than 2 to 3 decades, we have made as much as the mediators removed part of it using technology. But during COVID, it has come back. Again, it has gone in between the intermediators. That's mean the business has gone through now dealers, brokers, agents again. So the commission has calculated more. So our expectation as a finance, which we would spread more in terms of rural, we expect a lot more to remove the intermediaries and trying to connect corporate versus the end customer, that's what the reality of finance and the trust and the faith will get built, and it eliminates other all unwanted financial charges which is posted on the end customer. So the expected digital is what direct customer versus corporate, that will enable more, and the unwanted these charges which get enabled when the digital transformation goes into the interior parts of rural. Back to you, Mr. Jasprit.
Thank you, Dr. Suresh. Obviously, financial services was probably one of the first sectors to get on this bandwagon from a digital transformation perspective. Mankiran, my last question to you before we get on with the audience question, and I see that we've got a couple of questions from audience, which I'll ask any one of you to pick and answer. So, Mankiran, all of these leaders, right, have spoken about growth. Whether it's financial leaders, technology leaders, etc. Do you think all of a sudden we were talking about better control systems in place because of this entire digital transformation?
Jasprit, if I get your question right, you're saying, will there be better controls for systems because of digital transformation?
Absolutely.
I think, like everybody said, there is change that is imminent. All companies have become technology-led organizations, and digital transformation has got, I love calling it the honeymoon period. I think the COVID has been a honeymoon period for digital transformation. The change that is now evident and it's become what was considered as not possible before has become a reality. So it's here to stay, and here to, I think it's going to be for us to see how we can use it to grow and for us to differentiate the business. On the question of compliance and visibility, or how I think Vikas was saying, right, risk of we're talking about risk. What we considered as risk before and the definition of risk today is completely changed. Whether it was the example of the ransomware, but even thinking about risks in business in the context of pre-COVID versus post-COVID, we will never ever in the future not consider a pandemic as a business risk. And I think the pandemic has also shown that need for visibility of information. Somebody spoke about, we have a lot of data, doesn't talk to each other, right? The silos have become unintentionally wider. Therefore, the seamlessness of data, the seamlessness of visibility becomes even more relevant. And with visibility, somebody said, what you can measure, you can manage, right? I think what you can measure, you can improve. So when the data is seamless, it's visible, there is naturally more compliance, naturally more control that we're able to put on that. So I think that's going to be the benefit. That is not going to be scattered. It's going to be paperless. It's going to be automated. It's going to be intelligent. It's going to be seamlessly talking between different systems, and therefore allow the ability for data to be more intelligently used. So,
wow, I think excellent closing points from you, because I remember, I think you only started this by talking about data-led strategy to talking about more controls put in place. I think we've covered the complete proverbial full circle. We've got three interesting questions from the audience, and I would encourage anyone of you to pick some of these questions. If one person can answer each question, it would be great, right? So let's start with probably the most difficult one, and then Dr. Suresh, if you would want to pick up this, that would be great. Considering what's happened in the last 18 months, and also what's happening now from Omicron perspective, the entire rise of new COVID cases, would you advise people this is the right time to invest in digital transformation? I know, very difficult question. I probably would have hated it if I would have been on the panel.
I would say that this question we ask every day to us. So I would say yes, immediate yes. Again, why? In India, e-business is less to do with electronics, more to do with emotions. Try to get as much as pattern, try to connect with them, get engaged with them. For example, so far prior to COVID, the maximum technology was more focused on the corporate digital, where we are keeping the stakeholders and the internal users happy, keeping the technology serving them. This is the first time during COVID, people realized moved corporate digital towards a customer digital, where every individual customer is treated as corporate. Even the solutions were treated more towards them. For example, being in financial services, we didn't use something called public cloud or a private cloud or a hybrid cloud. We use something called community cloud, which is nothing but end users can connect in, dealers, brokers, agents can connect in. They can select their expected financial services during this particular potential tough period. And we created a slogan of earn to pay model. We will make them to earn so that they can pay for us. That's why the digital transformation went very deeper pockets of rural. We found 80% of the customers, be it a transporter, will get the details of the other customers to use the transport. You got a loan for a buffalo, you get the other milk products, and utilizer of beneficiary of milk products, part of the community cloud. If you are a kirana shop, you are trying to run a business, part of the kirana shop, what are the logistics which can reach there, and from there which can go to the end customers. All those things were part of the community cloud, which has transformed enough due to this 18 months. So expectation is different, but reality when it comes to digital transformation during crisis, it has proved and performed the extremeness of a community cloud, which was expected, not expected during normal times, which is forced now and got into a new model, and which is available and made affordable to the rural customers, which is part of the local system available on that. So yes, your question is, and things are matured, and surely we can see a different, because in India, e-business is a lot more to do with emotions, less to do with electronics. Back to you, Mr. C.
Wow, dealing with emotions to earn to pay model to the entire community cloud piece, right? Very, very interesting aspects. Anybody feel free to pick up this question. Uh, any live examples of financial transformations that have actually either helped employees or improved customer experience?
I think from a financial transformation perspective, one area that we see a lot is in the area of Vikas has spoken about travel and expense, but in the area of travel and expense, right? It's a large expense that organizations typically undertake. And when the employees are spending money on the behalf of the company, and how the company reacts or responds in terms of how that audit happens, how the turnaround time of getting that processing back is usually considered very personal. In fact, we've done a survey, I don't have the exact number, but a large portion of Indian employees felt that how the organization treated them with regards to the reimbursement process is actually how, equally directly proportionate to how their experience with the organization is, because it is their money that the organization is repaying, right? And we've seen a lot of companies therefore look at leveraging their opportunity of employee experience, whether it was paperless processes, the advantage of the paperless motion, but also it was need-based, with organizations and employees working from home across remote locations, finding a process which was automated, intelligent, is allowing for employees to not spend, I think on an average, the data says employees spend about 8 to 10 hours of productive working hours filling expenses. If a simple process like that could be automated, it's great productivity for the employee, but from a finance perspective as well, the hours of audit and hours of sample checking versus every expense getting audited is an advantage that allows for finance to also then focus on more mission critical priorities, like focusing on the future versus auditing expenses. It's a very small tactical example, but I think an example of a low-hanging win area that we've certainly spent a lot of time on.
I can give one more example as well, just brief, right? So if you look at hiring process, right? I mean, in an industry like ours, we hire a lot of people. And historically, we used to do a lot of steps before a employee gets onboarded, right? Now, 90% of all the steps have got automated. Now we do touchless hiring, right? I mean, the entire conversation about how you shortlist a candidate, what the candidate understands about the company, the role, how the interview process is set up, everything is automated. And only in the final leg, when the employee has to really get onboarded, is when the human intervention happens, right? That has cut down the lead time of an employee being hired significantly. What used to take maybe 20, 30 days can now be cut short to 2 or 3 days. So therefore, the prospective employees feel very happy, saying that they get a result one way or other very quickly. The entire experience is very seamless and uniform across various locations and various type of roles. And it also helps us reduce cost, right? So therefore, this is also a very good example, which I never thought was possible. But the technologies are now available where you can really, do the entire onboarding process of an employee through digital technologies and make it smooth, seamless, cost efficient.
Perfect. I think that probably brings us to the end of this eminent panel discussion, right? From talking about a data-led strategy to talking about 47% of hospital consultations becoming online, to auto manufacturing industry, the procurement moving from completely files office to a paperless office, to every penny counts, to talking about the entire alpha, beta, the entire BPO model, to now also talking about contactless employee hiring. Never heard about that, but thanks for that. I think it, and last but not the least, Mr. Suresh talking about earn to pay model, the community cloud. I think I probably had one of the best times moderating a panel. I have lots and lots of learning experiences that I can take back today, reflect on it. Uh, Thank you for being such great panelists. I wish you all the success. Have a great day and be safe. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thank you everyone, and thanks Jaspreet.
Thank
Great
you,
moderation.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
For more updates from CXO TV, please like and subscribe to our channel.